Lord God and Heavenly Father, we ask, Lord, that you open our eyes, that we may see wondrous things out of your word. Help us, Lord, not to be hearers or readers only, but to be doers. As we ask in Jesus' blessed name. Amen. One of the great theological discussions and debates in the middle century was how many angels can you fit on the head of a pin? One of the great theological debates in the middle century, or the middle centuries, was how many angels can fit on the head of a pin. Now we laugh, but it was a serious and fair dinkum discussion. Today we're going to continue our time, and it's our second last time in the book of Revelation for this series. And you may think I'm mad by raising that particular question, but I hope at the end of it that we will have an understanding of what that sort of question means to us today. Let's have a look at Revelation. Today we're going to be looking at Revelation chapter 1, and we're going to be having a glimpse of the new heaven and the new earth. It's a study in Revelation 21. Okay? Now, Revelation 21 pretty well speaks for itself. We really don't have to worry about a great deal of allegory or working things out. There are things in there that are a bit weird and strange, but nonetheless, it's pretty straightforward. So let's have a look at what Revelation chapter 21 says. But before we do, let's have a look at what we've been looking at in Revelation. First of all, we started off, and Revelation was a revelation not to John. John was just a witness to the revelation of the Lord Jesus Christ. It wasn't John having a dream. It was John being a witness to what was happening in heaven and in earth, in the past, in the present, and in the future. And then we saw how God saw us, the church, specifically the 7 churches in Asia Minor. But in reality, it's probably about the church over time, over centuries, with different aspects. I remember, I think it was it last week or somewhere, I was seeing, and someone was talking about how here in Australia the Christian church is declining. And that, this is a sign of the end times. Well, that may be true. But when you look at the church worldwide, the church is far from declining. It's actually growing. But we have a myopic perspective based on where we live and not on the whole world view. For instance, it's going gangbusters in China, in Africa, in other parts of Asia. I mean, Pete Davies, when he was here a couple of years ago, asked us as a question of our review situation, what in the world is an average Baptist? And if you took it on the basis of here in Tea Gardens or along the coast of Australia, no offence, we would say the average one is someone over 80 with bald head, or grey hair, or whatever. No, that's how we tend to look at it. That's what Australia says about the church, the state of the church in Australia. That it's for oldies. And it's for the so-called Europeans. Now, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant background. But the reality is that the average Baptist in the world is a 14-year-old black girl from Africa. So take us all into account. Take it all in, that's the average Baptist. Not someone old and ancient. So we've got to make sure that we're looking at it in a perspective of the worldview or from God's perspective. And so, but he was telling the church, what he said about them, that they knew we in the church need to be overcomers and risk takers. Another word for overcomers is the same word, conquerors. Conquerors mean you've gone in and fought and you've won. Overcomers means that there's calamity all around you, but you still overcome. Both words are good. Both words are interchangeable. Both words, I guess, paint the picture of where the church needs to be. We need to be overcomers and risk takers for the Lord Jesus Christ. And then he saw a glimpse of heaven. You know, what must take place after this, and how we need not to be just children of God, but a kingdom of God, where God dwells. And then we saw a glimpse of the end times, what's going to happen, the destruction, the chaos and all that's going on. And we've basically been informed, this is what's going to happen at the end. So don't get worried about it. You know, as I said before, it's the maths textbook. You don't know how to do the sums, but the answers are in the back of the book. You've seen, you know how to get there. Don't worry. You've been forewarned, so be on guard and grow in Christ. And I get frustrated. I really get frustrated when people get up and speak and talk to the congregations. We are being forewarned, we're being on guard, and we don't listen. We really don't listen. We carry on with our own old ways of living without being the risk takers, without being overcomers, without stepping out of our comfort zone. We want to be neat and secure. We don't want to be hassled. And the Bible tells us if you don't want to be hassled, follow Satan. You'll have a good life. For now. But it's not the now that matters. It's the forever that matters. It's the forever that matters. So what you need to do is put up with what happens now for the forever. And we're going to learn today why that forever is so important. And the real story that's happening in heaven, in earth, it's the fight of good versus evil, God versus Satan. And the real importance of us holding fast. We're going to get attacked. We must hold fast. And then we saw last week how that there's going to be 1,000 years of reign of those who, the saints reigning with the Lord Jesus Christ on earth, and the finality of Satan and the dead or the lost dead, those who don't know him, and how they're going to be cast in the lake of fire and they're going to be obliterated, and then there is going to be the resurrection or eternal life for those whose names are written in the book of life. That's how we ended last week. Is your name written in the book of life? That's the chapter. That's how it ends, suggesting that we need to make sure our name is written in the book of life. And now today we're going to have a look at the new heaven and new earth. What happens after that 1,000 years? What happens at when everything passes away and there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth? Where do we fit in? This is the good news. This is not something that's going to happen to people in the future. This is not something that's going to just happen to people in the past. This is actually what, this point onwards, in Revelation, is what's going to happen to you and me if we are overcomers, risk takers, and have our name in the book of life. So what I'm about to tell you is a glimpse of the great new place that we're all about to live. This is exciting stuff. Let's have a look what it says. A new heaven and earth. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I'm glad someone says I know. Because if you worship the sea, symbolically you're worshipping the evil world. And it's, you know, I'm not going to say anything, Alan, you said it all. Okay. And this is interesting. It's a new heaven and a new earth. Now there are theological discussion, we're not going to get in there. Does it really mean a completely new earth and a new heaven? Or does it mean a new rebuilt heaven and earth? Well, they're still both new, I suppose, refurbished new, or whatever. That does, but then it says, and there was no longer any sea. So the reality is it's probably still, well, a new heaven and new earth without the sea. Now the sea typified the barrier. In Jewish society, the water, the barrier, meant separation. And you can see that coming out with Moses. When he took the people across the Red Sea, it parted, they got across, others drowned and so on. So they were, in their understanding, the sea was the barrier. This is saying there is no longer any barrier between us, between people from one nation to another. Evil is gone. So it's a new heaven and a new earth. And I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem. It is not Jerusalem. You know, some people believe it's going to be Jerusalem, you know, with its citadel walls and all that stuff that's near Tel Aviv and so on. No, it's the New Jerusalem, the new dwelling place, the new kingdom, the new thing coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. So what's the New Jerusalem? It's not a place. What is it? Us. We're the New Jerusalem. We're the bride of the Lord. We're the bride of Christ. So coming out of heaven is what he saw, a New Jerusalem. It is actually people. It's not bricks and mortar. Was it Len prayed that we're the temple of the Holy Spirit? We are on this earth. We're the temple of the Holy Spirit. But in the New Jerusalem, in the new heaven and new earth, we are the temple of God. Not just the Holy Spirit. We're the temple of God. He's going to dwell and be with us. Not just the Holy Spirit, but him in his completeness, and we in our completeness. Prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. Now, I am not and never have been a bride. And I know that my wife was absolutely in wonderful rapture that she was marrying me. She was just looking forward to that day. Gee, I can tell a good story, can't I? But you can see it even on the movies when someone meets the love of their life, particularly the ladies, no offence. You know, oh, this is the one. You know, but it's painting the picture. The day of great celebration for your future life together is your wedding day. And you dress up. For your information, Alan and Graham, even I, on my wedding day, wore a tie. So you do dress up. You present yourself. You're looking forward to the magnificence. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look! God's dwelling place is now among the people." We have the Holy Spirit dwelling inside us as the seal, as the mark, to show we're not counterfeit. But now it's going to be God's dwelling place. The wholeness, the magnificence is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. This is what's awaiting you and me. This world, this earth, this joy that we do experience here pales to insignificance to what we're about to receive. We need to look forward to that. We need to get that sunk in. And so all the little criticisms, all the little gossiping, doesn't matter. We're going to be with God forever and ever. And ever. And ever. He's going to be our God. Let's have a look at the next verses. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. You know, I look around at the people here that have been through so much suffering from time to time. The pain, the physical pain, the emotional pain. You know, it hurts. It really hurts. Amen. Probably the worst pain is betrayal. It hurts. What you have suffered, what you will suffer, is going to be taken away and comforted. Well, there'll be none of that anymore. You know? No longer will we have to worry about our loved ones and the pain that they're going through. There will be no more pain. We will not be crying. And the reason why, It's the old order. The aches and pains of getting old has gone. It's passed away. That's the order. He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Now that's an interesting concept. If I take this pen and I make it new, it does mean I'm using the old, does it not? Doesn't mean I'm replacing it with something new. I am making it new. It's being born again. So we are born actually 3 times, physically, at the first resurrection, and now at the second resurrection. I am making everything new. Then he said, write this down, for these words are trusty, worthy and true. So this is the statement that we need to write down and indelibly focus on our brain. He said to me, it is done. I've finished my homework. I can go out and play. It is done. I am the Alpha, the beginning, the first letter of the Greek alphabet, and the Omega, the last letter of the alphabet. We would be saying the A and the Z. The beginning and the end. To the thirsty, I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. There will be no sea, but there's going to be water. So you'll have to not be a salty, but a fresh. I will give water without cost. In other words, it's going to be abundant. It's yours. We know what it is. If there's a price to our water from Mid-Coast Water, we tend to be a little bit careful on its use. Studies show if it's all free, we just let it run. Okay, we've got to get this through. It's going to be an abundance, an appreciation, a completely different way of life than what we're used to. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. We're going to play. We're not going to have to work. We're going to play. We're going to recreate. We're going to enjoy. We're just going to simply enjoy. Simply enjoy. We, in our lives, rush around and things happen and we've got to help this one or help that one. Or we make, we're our own worst enemy, do this and do that instead of just relaxing. But there comes a time when we do relax, we go, I'm just sitting here and go, what do you want to do? I'm just going to sit here and read a book. We're going to enjoy. That's going to be our life. We're not going to be bored or tired. Those who are victorious, those who are overcomers, those who are risk takers. And I'll be their God and they will be my children. But, here's an interesting one, the cowardly. Cowardly has 2 meanings to it. You can cower away in fear, or you can be like a traitor. So there's a list here, and I don't know if it's an exhaustive list, but it's a list that John saw that tried to describe. The cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, look at the stars, do all these things, Ouija boards, that sort of stuff. The idolaters, those who worship other gods, and all liars. Now, a liar isn't one who just tells a lie. A liar is one who constantly tells lies. They will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulphur. This is the second death. We, on the other hand, are going to be free from the second death. Okay? The cowardly, the unbelieving, they're going to be wiped out. They're going to be obliterated in the sea of lake of burning sulphur. Some people, not simply you're not going to be any more. You're going to be in that lake just being burnt and tormented. Next. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues came and said to me, come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. So we're a bride. We're a city. We're a New Jerusalem. We're a kingdom. And he carried me away in the spirit. Here it is, once again, and he carried me away in the spirit. John physically left his body and went. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a vision. He was being carried away to a mountain great and high and showed me the holy city Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from God. Why did he go to the mountain? So he could get a clear picture of what's going on. The trouble with prophecy is unless you have that perspective from what God's point of view, overlooking it all, You don't understand the full picture. A couple of weeks ago, Sue and I were out at the back of Scone, and we're on top of Mount Tawari. It's not the highest mountain in the Liverpool range. It's one of the highest. And we stood on the top of that, and we could see almost to Lithgow from Scone. Look around there, you could see. We could see forever and ever. We would be able to see if there was a fire burning at Lithgow or whatever was going on, we could see. From our place where we live now, when the fires were on, we could stand at our veranda and we could see what was going on in Dowley and Saltash. We could see the smoke. If I was down on the ground a bit lower, I could see smoke, but I couldn't tell where it was coming from. We could tell. You need to get the perspective from God's point of view. And so we have, and he could see. And what he saw, a mount, and showed the holy city, Jerusalem, coming. Remember, it's people. You see, he's watching the multitude of people. It shone with the glory of God, the people. And its brilliance was like that of a very precious jewel, like a jasper, clear as crystal. Poor old John, he's trying to describe something out of this world in a worldly way, likening it to jasper, likening it to crystal, whatever. All we know is, people actually take that and say, oh, it's going to be this sort of thing and that. No. It's trying to get across to us the magnificence of what we're going to experience. It had a great high wall with 12 gates and with 12 angels at the gates. On the gates were written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. So it talks about the foundations of the walls, the gates, are going to be for the Jewish people, the 12 tribes. They're going to be part of this kingdom. They're going to be part of this new Jerusalem. And there were 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, and 3 on the west. 4, 3 to 12. So this 12 number comes in, but this 12 number isn't specifically 12, but we see this gate, and it's just saying that whether you're from the north, the south, the east, or the west, you're going to be able to come into this gate if you're Jewish or a follower of the Lord in that way, you'll be through. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. The foundations of this great city was built on the 12 apostles. Peter, James, John. One question I have in a hard time when we don't know, is one of those apostles Judas or is it Paul? That's where I'm getting to in terms of how many angels can fit on the head of a pin. People will start arguing now. Are the 12 apostles the 11 plus Judas or the 11 plus Paul? The point is it doesn't matter. That's an irrelevant argument. It's an irrelevant discussion. It's not what John is focusing on. John is focusing on the fact that we are the church, the people that the foundation is on the apostles of the spreading of the church, the growth of the church. They are the foundations, we are the bricks that have come since the foundations were laid. Next. The angel who talked with me had a measuring rod of gold to measure the city, its gates and its walls. The city was laid out like a square, as long as it was wide. He measured the city with the rod and found it to be 12,000 stadia in length, and as wide and high as it is long. It's a cube. It's a cube. It's not a square, it's a cube. A stadia is approximately 100 metres, depending on which unit of measure in which country you were looking at back then. But it's also used as a measuring distance of a day's travel, of a travel. So many stadia. And it's where we get stadium from. So all those sorts of things. Don't argue about those sorts of things. That's arguing about how many angels can fit on the head of a pin. That's not there for us for the argument. It's there to try and describe what John saw. And he was doing the best he could with the limited vocabulary, the limited vision, the limited understanding that he had compared to eternity. In other words, it's a cube, it's high, it's 12,000, The angel measured the wall using human measurement, and it was 144 cubits thick. A cubit is about 18 inches, or in the new language, whatever it is, so on. The wall was made of jasper and the city of pure gold, as pure as glass. Hang on. Once again, pure gold, as pure as glass, or glass is in him, really isn't that pure. So what's going on here? He's trying to convey the magnificence. And he's limited in his speech. The foundation of the city's walls were decorated with every kind of precious stone, and people have said that's like the breastplate that, on the shield of Israel that represented the various tribes, and each had its precious stone. The point is the stones here he's saying, he's using a couple of times. It seems to be an incomplete list. He's just trying to describe it. What each one means, I don't know. People can argue on it, but once again, it's arguing about how many angels you can fit on the head of a pin. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth ruby, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th turquoise, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. He's saying this is beautiful. Superbly beautiful, superbly precious. The 12 gates were 12 pearls, each gate made of a single pearl. Whoa. Big oyster, yeah. And you know what? We think a pearl is beautiful, and it is. But how's a pearl made? Aggravation. Inherited. We are pearls. Or someone's pearls in there that have became beautiful because they were irritated. I often say, when I ask the Lord for patience, why does he surround me with idiots? We don't understand and pray for it. We've got to know and understand what it's about. The great street of the city was of gold, as pure as transparent glass. But gold isn't transparent glass. Not the gold I've seen. Maybe I've got some of that counterfeit stuff that David Roney had, I don't know. Transparent glass. The point is he's trying to tell us, this is just so great. It's so unbelievable. It's actually indescribable. Next. I did not see a temple in the city because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. He's going to dwell with us. We're going to be his temple, but now he's our temple. Boy, poor old John must be really getting bewildered at this stage. But nonetheless, we know that we're going to be with God and we are going to be in eternal rest. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives its light and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light and the kings of the earth will bring their splendour in it. On no day will its gate ever be shut, for there will be no night there. The glory and honour of the nations will be brought into it. Now this is interesting. When I think I was in about year 8 at school, one of my friends said to me, I don't believe in God. And I said, why not? He said, because my dog died, and I love my dog, and he's not going to be in heaven, because there's no dogs in heaven. And therefore I don't want to be there without him, so I don't believe in God. Perverse logic. But you see, people have a perverse understanding of what heaven is and what it's going to be about. The Bible tells us very clearly, all the joyous things, all the splendour up here, the nations will walk away, and the kings of earth will bring their splendour into it. All the good things, all the glorious things that we know and experience on this earth will be there in heaven, but even at an ultimate level. Our joy will know no bounds. What you enjoy doing now, you'll be able to enjoy doing there, but with extreme, unbelievable pleasure and understanding. Pleasure may not be the right word, but please get the picture. Nothing impure will ever enter into it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Last chapter, what were we told? Only those are going to experience this, whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. What are we told at the end of this chapter? Only those who don't experience are those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. And so we ask the same question as we asked last week. The only thing that matters is your name written down in the Lamb's book of life? Now, coming to the pin and how many angels we can fit on the head of it. We laughed. Because that is such a stupid theological thing to worry about. It's not even in the Bible, but people just got carried away with it. Now I look at us. I look at the church. And I say, given all that we know about our eternal life, why do we bother about some of the silly, idiotic, mindless discussions, arguments, debates we have in the church? You know, I don't like the way this one plays, or I don't like the way this one plays music, or I don't like this, or I don't like that, or, you know, really shouldn't talk to that person because they drain me. Oh, they should know better. Oh, their baby cries too much. You know, look, really, the rapture comes before the 1,000 years, or no, the rapture comes 1,000 years, you know, all that sort of stuff. John wasn't telling us that for us to have discussion and argument. He was giving us this glimpse, this testimony, so that we can make sure our name is written down in the Lamb's book of life. And if our name is written down in the Lamb's book of life, then we will be simply just loving. Simply just loving. And it's hard. It's hard to love the unlovely. We have baggage galore from when we were brought up, what we do and how we do things. But John is saying to us loud and clearly, none of that matters. What really, truly, super matters is your name written down in the Lamb's book of life, because what you're going to experience at the end times, whether we go through the tribulation or we don't go through the tribulation, whether it was 1,000 years earlier or 2,000 years later, none of that matters. What matters is we are going to be in the new heaven and in the new earth if our names are in the Lamb's book of life. That's the one thing that you can take out of here today, is that the most important thing about reading Revelation is that it gives us a forewarning, it gives us an understanding of where we are headed. And with that at the end, if that's the prize, then everything else that falls into place doesn't matter. I watched for about the 100th time yesterday the film The Magnificent Seven. Apart from the great music, there is one line in that from when I was a youngster, because I think I was pretty young when it first came out, was a statement. The guy, the bandit, the bully, he turns to Yul Brynner and says, "You had your chance to get away, but you came back. Why did you come back for a people like this and a place like this? Why, it doesn't make sense. You came back for this lot." This is the whole story of Jesus. We could say to him, why did you come back for us? Why? The answer simply, because he loves us. And he wants to share eternity with us. The great prize, the great kingdom, the great city, the great life. He wants to share with us. It's ours. But we're only going to be there if our name is in the Lamb's book of life. So we pray. Dear Lord God and Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, that you have allowed us to see where we're going. Lord, it's very hard for us to comprehend exactly what it looks like. But Lord, you've painted the picture better than any travel brochure. And Lord, we are just so looking forward to being with you in paradise. Help us, Lord, to be overcomers. Help us, Lord, to be conquerors. Help us, Lord, to be risk takers. Help us, Lord, to go out and tell others what they're going to be missing out on if they continue to follow Satan. Help us, Lord, even as we are, that we do not compromise with the ways of Satan, but help us to remain pure, Lord, so that we will be overcomers, that we will continually have our name in bold in the Lamb's Book of Life. Be with us now, we ask in Jesus' blessed name.